Hello, my name is Leroy Alloway, and I'm the Planning and Public Involvement Program Manager for the Alamo Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, or the MPO. I'd like to welcome and thank you for viewing this presentation. The information I'll present is identical to that presented during the October 2014 public meetings regarding the MPO's Metropolitan Transportation Plan, Mobility 2040. This is the third round of public meetings held to support the development of the 2040 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. As part of this presentation, I will provide an overview of the MPO's planning process, who we are, what we do, and why it's important for our region. I'll walk you through some of the steps that have already taken place to get us to where we are in the process. This includes developing the plan, vision, and goals, identifying a preferred growth scenario, and identifying projects for potential inclusion in the 2040 plan. I'll then go over the purpose and objective for this round of meetings and the next steps for development of the long-range plan. First, let's spend a few minutes talking about the Alamo Area MPO and our roles and responsibilities. Metropolitan Planning Organizations, or MPOs, are responsible for ensuring a comprehensive, cooperative, and continuous planning process. We are here to make sure various transportation agencies in the region are working together to maximize the benefits of proposed transportation projects, particularly those that receive federal funding. The Alamo Area MPO is one of approximately 400 MPOs across the country that were created by federal law to manage and allocate federal funding coming into the region. One of the primary ways we do that is through our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. The MPO is responsible for preparing 3 planning and programming documents on an ongoing basis. The Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP, is the MPO's operating budget over a 2-year time frame. This document contains regional transportation planning studies being conducted by MPO staff or being funded by the MPO for partner agencies to be able to prepare projects for inclusion in the long-range plan. This plan is updated on an annual basis. The Metropolitan Transportation Plan, or MTP, sets forth long-range goals, strategies, and priorities for transportation projects over the next 25 years. This plan is required to be updated at least every 5 years. In order to receive federal funding, projects must be included in the MTP. This allows agencies to continue planning efforts and to move the projects in the MTP forward toward construction. Once funding is allocated to a project, the project moves into the Transportation Improvement Program, or the TIP. The TIP identifies projects that will go to construction within the next 4 years and operates as the MPO's short-range plan for the region. All of these documents are available for review on our website, located at www.alamoareampo.org. And all of the plans referenced cover the MPO study area, which is shown on the screen. Our study area includes all of Bexar, Comal, Guadalupe, and a portion of Kendall counties. As part of the development of Mobility 2040, we are holding public meetings in each of these counties to ensure the long-range plan represents the needs and priorities of our region. The activities of the MPO are overseen by the Transportation Policy Board. The Transportation Policy Board is comprised of 14 elected and 7 appointed officials representing various entities and agencies throughout our 4-county study region. The board is currently chaired by San Antonio City Councilman Ray Lopez, with Bexar County Commissioner Kevin Wolf serving as vice chair. The purpose of this round of meetings is to continue the development of the 2040 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. This plan is updated every 5 years and is scheduled to be adopted in December 2014 by the Transportation Policy Board. The 2040 plan will build upon the previous plans to set regional transportation priorities over the next 25 years. We are making every effort to ensure that all parts of our community are included in this planning process. This image illustrates the planning process we have undertaken in support of Mobility 2040. While we are nearing completion of this effort, your participation is still very much needed to help us identify which projects will make it into the 2040 plan. Again, this plan is important because projects must first be identified in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan to be eligible to receive federal funding. Now let's spend a few moments talking about the process we use to develop the adopted vision and goals for Mobility 2040. Development of the vision and goals started with our Study Oversight Committee. The Study Oversight Committee is comprised of representatives from all of the MPO member agencies and is responsible for overseeing the work our consultants are performing for this effort. To the Study Oversight Committee, we posed a simple question. What is your vision for the region's transportation system in the year 2040? What we heard could be grouped into these 6 themes: providing more transportation choices, ensuring efficient land use, making transit attractive, reducing congestion, providing complete streets, ensuring efficient and consistent policy and planning coordination. We then asked the study committee to revisit the goals from the Mobility 2035 plan to see what needed to change in order to achieve their vision for Mobility 2040. This was an important step, as the goals contained in Mobility 2035 and prior plans had not been changed since 1999. This became the basis for the draft vision and goals for the 2040 plan. We then took these draft statements out to the community for feedback and input. Members of the public expressed to us that they were interested in adding topics such as fiscal responsibility, water availability, and agency coordination. This round of meetings happened in September through October of 2013. On October 28, 2013, the draft vision and goals were presented to the Transportation Policy Board for their consideration and action. The board reviewed both the vision and goals and recommended adding a bullet to the vision to address preservation of the existing transportation system. The board then voted to adopt the revised vision and goals to help guide the development of the 2040 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Once the vision and goals were adopted, the next step was to figure out what exactly we were planning for, looking at population and employment growth scenarios. This table shows the projected population and employment growth for each of the 4 counties in our study area. You will note that Bexar County's population is anticipated to increase by over 1 million people by the year 2040. You will also note that Comal and Guadalupe counties are anticipated to be experiencing triple-digit growth percentages over the same time period, while Kendall County is anticipating almost an 88% increase in their population. This information is based on projections developed by the State of Texas demographer and is an indication of how many people we should be expecting in our area in the next 25 years. However, these numbers do not tell us where those people will choose to live and work. For this reason, the MPO went through a process to identify several different scenarios for where people may choose to live and work. The purpose of this process was to try to make some assumptions about future land use and the types of needs that would be created for our regional transportation system. The MPO Study Oversight Committee developed 3 scenarios for this purpose. One scenario followed the development patterns of the last 15 years. One scenario followed the development patterns of the last 5 years. And finally, one development scenario showed future growth focusing in and around key activity centers and along corridors connecting those centers. In February and March of 2014, we took these 3 scenarios out to the community, and we received a tremendous amount of feedback from the public. Some participants in our public workshops felt that the first scenario was inevitable, that growth would continue to occur within Bexar County outside Loop 1604, spreading to the north central and northwest parts of the region. Some participants felt that the third scenario was nice, but probably not realistically achievable anytime soon. And still other participants felt that the second scenario provided a happy medium between the first and third scenario. This information was presented to the Transportation Policy Board, and Scenario 2 was ultimately selected by the board as the adopted growth scenario for the region. This image illustrates the intent behind Scenario 2, our adopted growth scenario. It follows a more recent trend that shows a greater interest in residents in Bexar County living closer to downtown in medium to higher density developments. We see this type of development in what has occurred at the Pearl, at Vistana, and several other new urban dwellings that have opened inside Loop 410 within the past 5 years. This scenario also calls for increased use of alternative modes of transportation and complete streets without focusing in on specific corridors. For Comal, Guadalupe, and Kendall counties, this scenario shows development patterns similar to the 15-year trend. In working with these areas, they felt that the lack of land use control by the counties made it difficult to effect a change in growth patterns. So what does this look like in terms of population and employment? The map shown on the screen shows population based on 2010 numbers for the 4-county region in our study area. Each dot shown on the screen represents 50 people. This map shows the population expected in the year 2040. We have distributed the population throughout the study area based on our adopted growth scenario. Again, each dot represents 50 people. You can see in this map the tremendous amount of growth we are expecting and where we think that growth may occur. This map illustrates the areas with the greatest change in population. While Comal and Guadalupe counties are seeing a greater percent change overall, this map is based on the increase in the number of people. As such, the Bexar County areas appear darker because even though the percent change is lower, these areas are still anticipated to have a far higher number of people. But what about the employment that we project for 2040? The map on the screen shows 2010 employment. In this map, each dot represents 50 jobs. And this is the projected employment for 2040, allocated based on our adopted growth scenario. You will see a bit of density increase in Bexar County, but also note quite a bit of growth happening along the I-35 corridor and up to New Braunfels. Again, each dot represents 50 jobs. And here again is the percent change in the number of jobs. Similar to our population increase map, the darker the color, the higher the number of jobs located in the area. Once we developed an understanding of where people were going to locate in 2040, we were able to start identifying future transportation projects. We first had to study the impact that population and employment projections would have on our transportation system. The image shown on the screen illustrates congestion for 2010. It is based on the population and employment numbers from 2010, with the transportation system available in that year. Generally, green is good and means the roadway is operating well, almost in a free flow. Yellow means the roadway is experiencing some congestion. And red means the roadway is operating over capacity and is most likely congested or even gridlocked during peak periods. When we examine our 2040 population and employment assumptions, and if we do not add any other transportation projects other than those that are approved for construction through 2020, we have a transportation system reflective of what's shown on the screen. As you will note, a majority of the system will be operating over capacity if we do nothing beyond what has already been funded. Our regional transportation problem is significant, and we need your help to address what projects we want to include in the 2040 Metropolitan Transportation Plan to address these challenges. One of the issues we face is that our Metropolitan Transportation Plan is a financially constrained plan. This means we can only include projects for which funding can be reasonably expected. In order to help with this funding assumption, the MPO Executive Committee of the Transportation Policy Board has recommended the funding assumptions shown on the screen. The first assumption assumes that Proposition 1, which is on the ballot for November, passes, and that additional funding is made available through that passage. Proposition 1 would authorize annual disbursements from the state's oil and gas production tax collections to go to the State Highway Fund. The Executive Committee chose to allocate $650 million from potential Proposition 1 funding. The second assumption is that we would utilize 10 years of MPO discretionary funding in order to program that funding. The MPO regularly receives this funding source. Therefore, it can be reasonably expected to continue into the future. The Executive Committee also chose to include $605 million in managed lane projects. These projects include some type of toll funding to be included in the plan, but the ultimate project may or may not include those tolls. All in all, the total amount of funds we have to allocate, not including the managed lanes, which are considered self-funded, is $993 million. While the Executive Committee was creating the funding recommendations for use in this plan, our Study Oversight Committee was identifying projects for potential inclusion in the 2040 plan. The committee started by developing a universe of projects, meaning projects with the potential to receive federal funds. This included projects in the Mobility 2035 plan that were not funded, long-term mobility projects identified by partner agencies, and projects that were submitted but were not funded through the MPO's most recent call for projects. The Study Oversight Committee then applied a set of screening criteria to develop a shorter list of projects considered for inclusion in the 2040 plan. One of the main criteria considered was that the MTP should include regionally significant mobility projects. This criteria meant that rehabilitation projects and some other types of non-mobility projects would not move forward for consideration. This also meant that projects needed to show that they had a more regional impact, rather than simply serving one specific community. And now we need your help and input. We've created the short list of projects being considered for inclusion in the 2040 plan, and we need your help to further refine this list. Please keep in mind that inclusion in the MTP does not guarantee funding. Inclusion in the MTP, or Mobility 2040, allows agencies to start work to develop projects. This allows projects to be shovel-ready when funding becomes available. You can help us refine the list of projects by completing the survey at the link provided at the end of this presentation. Your responses will be considered alongside those of participants at our 6 public meetings and will be presented to the Transportation Policy Board to consider when they adopt the final list of projects for inclusion in the 2040 plan. The next steps for this plan. We plan to take the draft plan and project list to the Technical Advisory Committee and the Transportation Policy Board in October, so we'll be working quickly to synthesize the results from this round of public meetings and outreach. In November, we plan to revise the draft document for Mobility 2040 and conclude this planning process by presenting Mobility 2040, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, to the Transportation Policy Board on Monday, December 8, 2014, for their consideration and adoption. To participate in the project selection process and complete the survey that we mentioned a few moments ago, please go to mobility2040.org and click on the project survey link. Your input is incredibly important for this process, and I hope you will take the time to complete the survey and share this information with your friends, family, and coworkers. This concludes our online presentation. On behalf of the Alamo Area MPO, I would like to thank you for taking the time to visit our site, to watch this presentation, and for your participation in our region's long-range transportation planning process.